would like you to imagine a thin, stray dog standing amidst the pouring November rain, shivering with its tail between its legs. The dog is casting deploring glances at every passerby, hanging its head and whining softly as the people rush by under the dryness of umbrellas and the warmth of cloaks. The night gets longer and darker and colder, and the dog is still there, unprotected, with no shelter over its head and no food in its stomach. What do you feel? Sadness, sympathy, anger, or an urge to do something for that poor soul? Now, let us introduce one small change to the narrative. Imagine that instead of a dog, it is a pig. What do you feel now? I trust that every one of us here is familiar with the term animal protection. Perhaps some of you have read about it in books, heard of it in school, or even from the news. Regardless, it is a widely discussed topic and seemingly quite a simple one to put into action. But do any of us truly understand the term and what it really means to practice it? Or do we only understand it as a child would understand the conservation of momentum? Why don't we start by reminding ourselves of the definition of animal protection? It doesn't seem that complex. Be kind, be compassionate, do not harm, stop others if they harm. However, that is only the simple and popular version. The actual scientific one is much longer. It is the effort to prevent cruelty, reduce suffering, and ensure the survival of all animals through human behavior, social institutions, and legal and moral responsibility. Most importantly, it is to ensure the survival of all animals. This brings me back to my original point. You would feel sympathy and distress if you see a dog in the rain, as you would feel it cruel to allow it to remain in that state. But what would you feel if you saw a pig? You might as well ignore it or deem the event trivial and not worth attending to. Is that called animal protection? Pigs, if the biology books are correct, are also classified as animals, but why? Why would most of us feel and do nothing if you saw a pig in the rain? To answer this question, we might need to consider the differences between dogs and pigs. Has any of you seen and wanted to stroke a dog before? I have. Images that often come to mind when we think of dogs are of cute little puppies with not a care in the world and adorable little faces of determined loyal ones running after their owners. On the other hand, has any of you seen and wanted to stroke a pig before? Well, I've certainly seen a pig as I live in the countryside, but the idea of stroking it hasn't really crossed my mind yet. Images that often come to mind when you think of pigs are of mud, unsanitary conditions, and pork. Judging by the fact that most or some of you have not even laid your eyes on a pig before in your life, I think it is safe to assume that dogs are closer to us humans while pigs remain in the abstract and ambiguous concept of mud and meat. This might explain why we are more easily moved by dogs than by pigs. This selective empathy, as we can call it, is a very common phenomenon. We care more for those who make a regular and positive appearance in our lives than those who seem far away in locations that most of us would not visit. This, though common, might not be entirely beneficial or correct. We are currently blinded by the familiarity of our lives and oblivious to those suffering behind the closed door of unfamiliarity. To truly connect and turn concept into action, we would need to unlock that door of unfamiliarity and face the reality with an objective and unbiased point of view. Animal protection is not only about protecting the rights and welfare of the animals we are familiar with, but also about defending those whom we might have only read about in textbooks or seen on social media. Our attention should not solely be focused on stray dogs and cats, but also on animals we might not have seen in real life or might not be the topic of discussion. We could start by noticing a bit more about farm animals when we are in the countryside. However, unfortunately, this symptom of selective empathy is not only performed on animals, it is too performed on our fellow human beings. Tragedies that happen near us often receive more attention than those which happen in faraway lands to people we have not contacted and possess no knowledge whatsoever about. We care more for the people that surround us and often neglect the needs and suffering of the people who live far beyond the radius of our lives. This, by all means, is human nature. Chamberlain, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in 1938, when Hitler had already become leader of Germany and had used aggression against many countries, had once said in a speech that these conflicts were a quarrel in a faraway land between people of whom we know nothing. There are times when we are aware of the peril of others but unconsciously choose to turn a blind eye. An example can be shown by the Sudan famine. How many of you know of the famine and had actively engaged in researching the details? Not many. It is not in the headline of the news, nor is it a very popular topic of discussion. If you had searched for it, you would find this and this. There's also the Bangladesh misery. These catastrophes are happening to people all around the world due to civil wars and other reasons, and are not even brought to light for the global public. Selective empathy is, in its own way, a natural instinct for humankind, but that does not mean it is an instinct to be carried with pride or used as a shield against neglect. It is a human trait to be overcome, and perhaps we could overcome it by unlocking that door of unfamiliarity and facing every cruel reality of the world with eyes and hearts wide open. Thank you.